Hello, welcome to Bold Women Lawyers Spotlight Interview. I'm Sharon Christie, the CEO of Bold Women Lawyers. I help lawyers in solo and small law firms and the entrepreneurs who support them to create the business, marketing, and sales strategies they need to attract great clients easily, to make more money, and to love their law firms. So today we have such a great guest, Jaclyn Foster. I'm really excited to talk to her because she's going to tell us all about something that was one of my biggest headaches when I had my own solo law practice, which I had for 16 years. We're going to be talking about staffing. So let me tell you a little bit about Jaclyn, and then we're going to jump right in. She is the founder of Dell Trust Legal Recruiting and Staffing. Jaclyn brings a unique approach to strategically staffing law firms through a combination of traditional and modern futuristic processes, which I love. She focuses on consulting her clients through what she calls the RP effect. We're going to all learn what that means. To align the right people around the right priority with the right processes to enable predictable and sustainable growth. And she tells me, I believe this, it's a simple and powerful formula for effective staffing and training and retention. So, Jaclyn, welcome.
Thank
I'm
you,
really
Sharon.
happy to have you here.
Yes.
First of all, first question, we were talking about this before we came on. So the name of your company is Dell Trust,
Mhm.
and you're laughing because most lawyers think, "Oh, she's a trust company." I don't get
Yep.
it. So explain the name, and then we'll get into the meat of it.
Sure. Yes. I was just telling you when I was at the Wisconsin Bar Association conference in this summer, I switched the name earlier this year off of, just offering the freelance work. And lawyers take things so literally. Everyone came up to me and they're like, "You must be a Delaware trust company. That just makes sense." And I'm like, "No,
Mhm.
not even close." And so we're trying to get more clear about where legal recruiting and staffing. You put it perfectly. Exactly what we do is the whole both traditional as well as modern approaches to law firm staffing.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. So tell us about your journey. Like, how did you end up in this field?
Sure. So I'm a paralegal by trade. I was a paralegal mainly in solo law firms. The two major firms I worked for in my in firm career was with solo attorneys. And when I moved from Minnesota to a very rural area of Wisconsin for family reasons, met my husband. He lives here, and just kind of has to have to be here. He has a family business that's based here. I quickly realized that there wasn't a huge volume of law firms, especially not litigation firms, which was my passion. And then when I had my son in 2018, I realized it just wasn't feasible financially for me to go traveling 30 minutes into town one way and find daycare, which is scarce here, for the little bit of money that could be made in the area. So what we decided is I would work to be a stay-at-home mom. Quickly learned that I couldn't do that mentally. I loved working. I loved being a paralegal. I was a great paralegal, I would say. And I loved it. I was a heavy litigation paralegal. So I actually ended up connecting with a company called Boson Solutions. I still work with them frequently, in the sense of they offer now virtual assistant services in the realm of marketing, bookkeeping, things of that nature, but they used to also
Mhm.
offer paralegal work to law firms. And they got me connected with a firm, a work comp firm based out of Chicago in their IME department. It wasn't, some big gig where I'm, still doing that heavy litigation, but I was able to work from home with my newborn, which made me crazy sometimes, but we navigated through it. So I worked as a subcontractor through that company for about 2 years in a remote capacity. This was before the pandemic. This was before remote work was really the big hype. And then I realized that I had what it takes, and I was excited to try to build my own company offering my services direct to the client and remove that subcontractor position out of it. So it was by happenstance that I did start my company offering Jaclyn Foster's freelance paralegal work to lawyers directly, in the thick of the pandemic. It was middle of the shutdowns, March 2020.
Wow.
So I was inundated, flooded with clients very quickly. And I realized that I could either, put a pause on how many clients I take. I can only, fill myself up to this many hours, especially with still having a little one at home, or, start bringing in help. So I started hiring senior paralegals, maybe an estate planning specialist to help me with my estate planning clients. I was a general practice paralegal, so I kind of took everything, to help with appellate writing, piecemealing them to help me help my clients. Quickly found that my passion that I didn't know I had was in staffing, was in people, and within connecting people with law firms, specifically that industry. So I continued in the freelance space, connecting clients with my subcontractors through my company. And again, we grew really, really fast. I established a big paralegal group I have on Facebook, connected with senior, talented, crazy talented paralegals all over the country. And then fast forward into now, we have merged this year into also offering your traditional recruitment, quote unquote. The reason I chose to do that was because exactly what I am looking for in the RP effect. It isn't enough to look at one problem in your law firm and say, I'm going to fix it, fill this hole with this person right now. We have to be looking at the full picture. And I really wanted to be the solution to the full picture long term. Actually, Bold Women Lawyers, that's awesome. Some of my most prized clients and success stories are with solo small law firms that, she broke from big law, broke from being a big partner at a big firm, and started her own practice, started with a freelance paralegal of mine, and then merged all the way up into needing full-time paralegal support within less than a year. So that was where I just wanted to really make it full circle and connect the traditional recruitment with the modern day solutions that are out there.
Great. I love it. I love that story. So tell me, having myself had the great headache at times of
Mhm.
hiring and retaining staff, tell me and tell all of us, everybody that's listening, what is this RP effect? What does that
So
mean?
sure. So like you said, it's aligning the right people around the right processes with the right priorities with the right processes to enable predictable and sustainable law firm growth. And that was a light bulb moment for me, especially as we have started to merge into traditional recruitment as well. And we kind of have a 50-50 balance going on in the company, is that it's either the person's having a hard time retaining, a hard time finding, a mixture of both, not being able to manage their ebbs and flows, trying to time their bottom lines correctly. Okay, where our bottom line is here. This is the staff that we need to support it. Is it going to go back down? And really looking at the full picture, that the reason why law firms have a difficult time finding and retaining the right talent is because of the background noise that comes into play as we grow our businesses and have that established and see how people can come in to support and maintain. Um, so as we break down, actually, we have to flip it on the opposite side, and we have to start with those right processes, then the priority, and then the right people will be able to come through a lot more simpler and will be able to retain. So that's how we look at the whole thing. Having that paralegal background and having managed cases from inception through trial, I understand the concept of good processes in a law firm and how they connect to poor retention as well. So that's where my clients and I try to cover every point with them, whether they're coming to me for 1099, remote paralegals, or we're
Right.
hiring an associate attorney. We like to look at all three sections of their business.
So let me back up a little bit to something you just said. You talked about the background noise as you grow your business.
Mhm.
Tell us what you mean by that.
So especially with solo business owners, I couldn't even say it just means attorneys.
Right.
Solo people that are starting a business have unavoidable that we're the only person doing all the things for the business in the beginning, which usually means that we don't feel a need to actually write out and draw out processes. We're just waking up every day and handling what needs to be handled. We're answering client emails the way we answer them. We're doing our follow-ups the way we do our follow-ups. We're stretching our work through the way that we know how. So what happens then is when we want to start bringing in people in a strategic and measurable way, we have a hard time identifying where those people need to come in because we don't have those processes laid out. And so the more we can stretch our processes out in the beginning, quote unquote, the background busyness of running a business, the farther they'll stretch, the more role clarity and lack of role ambiguity, all of that will come through. And so in that moment, then we kind of can see, okay, we're being really inundated right now in our medical record retrieval. We have so many medical records that are outstanding. We're following up with medical professionals, trying to get them. And so the more you can see that, the more you're starting to see, okay, here's a role that needs to be filled because we have these processes and we can see where things are getting backlogged. So that's kind of our first step to even identifying who the right hire is. A lot of people will come to me and say, I need a senior level paralegal. And I'll say, okay, what do you anticipate them doing? Well, a big thing of all the things, okay, the wearer of all hats is the most inefficient, profit sucking position you can possibly find because, you know, the
Amen.
medical,
Amen.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yep, the medical record retriever is going to come at a lot lower cost than the senior paralegal that can draft motions for you. So identifying that.
Exactly, exactly. And I think, you know, we lawyers and probably other small business owners, but certainly lawyers, we tend to think of people in a title. You know, what's their title? Paralegal, senior paralegal, junior associate, senior associate. And yet one of the biggest lessons I ever learned, you know, when I had my own firm was depending on what the position is and what it requires, you may not even have had to ever work in a law firm, much less have any specific legal training. And what you just said is a great example. Medical records retrieval. The best person I ever hired to do that, her experience was a bank teller.
Yep.
But she had the customer facing experience and the personality once we, you know, taught her what she was going to be doing to actually do the job. And you're right, much better. And at that point, much cheaper than had I brought in an experienced paralegal to do that
Exactly.
work. But yeah, that great for you that you recognize it and tell clients, well, no, you don't need somebody at that level for that job. You know, you might need somebody at senior paralegal level with X number of years experience, whatever it is. You know, if you're drafting motions, if you have a, I want to say higher level role because they're all important, but you
Yep.
have a more specific role that needs a certain amount of training or somebody to come in that has already had that training. So
Exactly.
that's great. So how do you know, when you're working with a client, somebody calls you and says, Jaclyn, I need help. You know, we're overwhelmed. Here's what I think I need. Or they'll call you and say, I need X.
Yep.
How do you work it from there to figure out, do they really need X or do they need Y? And they just don't realize it. And how do you get over that hump?
So a lot of the times, especially if it's my solo attorneys, I mean, we can, of course, be, you know, sort of surveying the whole company, or you know, if there's like a three people in the business, we can be surveying. A lot of the times it's really insightful to talk to the employees about what the right hire is going to be and and how they feel, and where, you know, they're working in the trenches for your cases. And so the more that you can speak with different people in the firm, the more insight we're going to get. But a lot of the times, again, going back to that process, is even if you don't have it in a sophisticated, you know, software or case management system or project management system yet, understanding what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and how much time is being spent there. And then, you know, not trying to jump ahead, but that'll segue into those priorities and talking about what is the intended waterfall effect of this employee. It's not enough to say, well, we just need the help. Okay, like that's a given. We know
Right. Right.
you know, you
Yeah.
need to, but what do you want this employee to do for the advancement of your business? Do you want it to be able to free you up so that you can take on more clients? So, are we looking at possibly an associate here, or are we looking at a senior paralegal that can take more lawyer level work? Is it to free up your paralegal to be able to do more of that work? Do you have a rock star paralegal and they're ready to leave because they're drowning in discovery? They're drowning in this administrative type of work that you need that help. What is that waterfall effect? What do you want to see this person come in and accomplish in your business? And then, looking 6 months, a year down the road, what do you want that to actually create for that next step, that next hire? Um, so the more we can understand the data of the law firm, the more we can say, okay, all these past due, like our clients are getting mad at us because of this. Our cases are getting continued because of this. Whatever is really
Mhm.
bogging down that business is likely where we need to focus. But then it's getting strategic in saying, okay, you might need a paralegal, a senior paralegal, but do you need a full-time one? We can bring in a
Yeah.
remote professional for 10 hours,
Okay.
but make your full-time hire be that on-site customer service, intake specialist, those types
Mhm.
of things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, great points.
Mhm,
So I want to get to retention, but before I get to retention, because I know that's a big issue too.
mhm.
Yeah, as you and I discussed, one of the biggest mistakes I ever made was hiring in a panic.
Right.
So, at what point should somebody start to look at, oh, I need to bring somebody in? Because there's always that fear
Mhm.
of, oh, it's going to cost me money and, I have to bring somebody else. And how am I going to do it? And then there's a tendency to keep putting it off.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you're so overwhelmed, you're panicked.
Yes, we're looking at the chicken or egg dilemma. So
Yes.
you need the new hire to bring in more clients. You need more clients to justify that new hire. That's where we're looking at, like I said, the priorities. So if our priority to bring in a new hire is to help us to be able to raise that bottom line, we need to look at where the bottom line is currently at and what that the bottom line in the slowest time of your business, what can that sustain? Can it sustain a full-time position, or can it be a part-time, or does it need to be 5 hours a week? So we're hiring for the right priority in the right moment. And when we're doing that, we're looking typically at that remote professional. How that remote professional can free up 5 hours of your time to bring in more. And then as you
Mhm.
bring in more, you can increase them to 10, you can increase them to 20, constantly be analyzing the cost effectiveness of it. We're saving on payroll taxes, we're saving on office
Yeah.
space, but 1099s can be a little more expensive hourly wise. And so how we're solving that chicken or egg dilemma is we're doing stepping stones of staffing with our growth. So
Mhm.
especially that brand new solo, to make it simple, brand new solo, they can bring in somebody for 5 hours a week to help them with XYZ, which frees them up. And then as they continue to they increase that person to 10 hours for XYZ until they get to that point where they're like, look at my bottom line. My bottom line is maintaining here that I could justify two full-time employees at this
Yeah.
point. Because
Yeah.
the bottom line is proven to me, and I get that as a business owner, as you go through growth stages, you start to get nervous. Okay, is this going to sustain though? Or is this just a really busy month? Or did I just, get a really good live interview and get a lot of clients, but now,
Yeah.
those have been
Yeah.
filled and I can't fire this person, but now I'm, sidelining them. So it's really being strategic around your growth and looking at your data at all times, your bottom lines, your profit margins, all of those things.
And one of the things, that you mentioned that I think makes it so much easier now is the availability of remote workers at a less than full-time
Yep.
um, uh, rate.
Yep.
So that because we immediately think, what, I have to hire a $50,000 a year, paralegal? Oh, gee, I don't have $50,000 right now to pay. And without thinking, well, first of all, you don't need all that money today.
Right.
And then is it really a paralegal? You're right, or some other type of help that I need?
Mhm.
Is it really full time? Or do
Right.
I have other options? And that's what's really great because you're right. as you grow, you may not start out needing somebody in a full-time position,
Correct.
but you definitely need the help to get to the point where you do need them in a full-time position. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, but the advent of, some of the positives that came out of COVID for sure was the use of remote workers, right?
Yeah.
And the ability to do it on a less than full-time basis.
Yep.
So that's where a company like yours would be extremely helpful
Right.
because you're able to fill that gap, right?
Absolutely. And to take it even further, I mean, and we offer the remote paralegals, the remote legal admins, obviously with our 1090 or with our traditional recruiting. But another thing that came out of the pandemic that I've learned is it's this like new wave of entrepreneurship. So many
Mm,
people were let go from their positions and realized, I have a passion for this. I have a passion for that. Across the nation, people are starting businesses. um Social media increase, like the power of TikTok, how many people you can reach from your little corner of the world, that you just take one look on LinkedIn and you'll find, we have tech professionals in the legal industry. We have discovery specific deposition stuff,
yes,
just very specific
yes,
professional
yes,
companies.
yes.
There's so many options to outsource, and that's when going back to those processes and you're saying, okay, I really need both. I need the medical record retriever, but I also need the senior paralegal. And maybe you can justify the senior for 40 hours a week. A lot of senior level paralegals don't want to be doing admin work. I'm an advocate for paralegals. I
Hmm.
know them. I work with them. I was one.
Yeah.
They want to be stretching their brain into the more high function type of work.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so if you need that paralegal, then support them with somebody that can help make their day-to-day easier, help them
Yeah.
get those medical records, help them. And that goes into retention, good working environment, good work culture, work-life balance, all of those things. So run a really well efficient or really well-oiled, efficient machine that is your business, and people are going to want to stay in it.
So on retention, again, I'm drawing on my own experience, but I made the assumption, wrongly, I learned that the way to reward good workers was bonuses, money,
Yes.
raises.
Mhm.
Now, that was important.
Right.
But one year I said, I'm going to ask them, what do you want? And much to my shock, what they wanted was more time off.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like, fine, that's fine. I'm happy to do that because it finally sunk into my brain that just because I think money's the only way to reward great work, and I had some really great team members, it's not, because people may be looking for something different.
Yep.
So, but it took me a long time to figure that out. And
Yeah.
so I'm wondering, in terms of retention and building the culture and an open culture and where people feel is really important, and challenging them. And I think you're right, challenging people intellectually, you know, to do higher level work
Right.
is what, not everybody's looking for that, but some people certainly are. And you really need to identify that so that you can keep them happy. What are some other ways that you think, when you've got really a great team and you want to keep them, what are some other ways that you might be able to work
Yep,
on
so you touched
retention?
on it. Money absolutely talks. People love bonuses.
Yeah.
So give them as frequently as you feel necessary. Of course, the PTO, the work from home days, if you can afford a hybrid schedule, even if it's one
Mhm.
day at home a week, that goes a long way. Also, and thinking about it this way too, to not get off topic, but when we look into more of a hybrid situation, you've just gained about 50 miles on your radius, maybe 30 on your radius of search,
Uh,
because people are willing to commute an hour one way 2 or 3 times a week and get to stay home the others. So I found that.
Good point.
And then, like you said, actually, it shouldn't be skimmed across on the career development. I think the stat
Mhm.
is like 54% of employees feel considering leaving their position because that company is not investing in their career development.
Mm.
And that is almost most important in the law firm setting. I talk to associate attorneys that are secretly wanting to leave their jobs and find a new one. And the main reason is because they're not given a solid mentorship. They're not given any support on the cases, any insight. They're not working with those senior partners or those senior managing attorneys on case strategy and learning. Paralegals, and it depends. And this goes down to, again, looking at the processes and the priorities on now we're looking at finding that right person. That's a huge part of retention because not everybody does want to advance into being a senior paralegal. Not everybody wants that, but a lot of them do. And so it's really truly taking the time. And I know this sounds corny and too easy to even be mentioned. It's like, well, duh, is to take your employees out to lunch once a quarter and just talk to them. What are your goals? What are your personal goals? What are your professional goals? And then you can find more ways that you can support that. For instance, if you have a paralegal that says, I really want to become your main trial litigation paralegal. I love trial. Okay, so let's start signing them up for little courses online. I reach out to me. I could tell you about 4 different people that create them for very, very low cost on creating trial binders, on how to prep your attorney for trial. Do those little extra courses and invest in what they're really looking to do. And also looking on the personal side of things. Maybe they have a personal goal of running a marathon. Well, maybe you could like help support them in that way, getting them a gym membership or something of this sort. And so it's really the hardest thing I think right now in the segue of the times and the employee market is people understanding that this is the reality to keep employees now and not being so bullheaded against it and saying, well, a job should just be enough. I pay them, they have benefits, and that should be enough. It's not anymore.
It's not.
And
No.
companies that don't accept that are not going to be able to compete with the ones that are.
That's a really great point. And I think in some ways, when you're smaller, it's easier to customize with your employees.
Absolutely.
Somebody, right, maybe wanting to run a marathon and you could support it in some ways with a gym membership, something along those lines.
Right.
Somebody else has no interest whatsoever in that.
Right.
But they're interested in they'd like to a different schedule or more work at home. And it was interesting. I saw an article the other day talking about the 4-day work week. And are we on the road to the 4-day work week? Which I totally understand. And it was funny because I thought, you were involved in litigation, and so was I.
Yep.
If only the courts would agree to
Get
that.
on board with that. That's why I feel
really,
like,
it would.
And the legal industry takes the longest to catch up. It's like, think of how long. I mean, some states, I think, were just doing e-filing a couple years ago. And you think about it, like, what?
Maryland's still implementing in some jurisdictions. At the federal level, they've been there for a while. But I know it's crazy.
It takes that time, and so when we're looking back and when we're talking about retention and the right people, it's also to be taking that interview beyond just screening them to see if they have the skills, the hard skills, soft skills for the job. Like, let's also see what they're running towards. I don't like to ask any of my candidates, why are you wanting to leave your current job? I don't ask them that question. I ask, why are you wanting to come to our position or to our company, this company? What are you running towards? What are you seeking? It gives this huge opening to understand what you can do to then maintain that. Because if they're coming here for a reason and they say, I want to advance my skills into being a litigation trial paralegal, you can understand that that's what they're going to be expecting coming and taking this job, or that they're hopeful for. And so to not let them down and to work towards that and remember, I think the interview is really outdated in how it's been ran in the past. Sell yourself to me. How can you make our company better? It's more about finding that mutual right fit, and that is the basis of retention. Is the first date. Is it going to be a good fit to continue on more and more dates, right? So yeah, I mean, you nailed it on the head. It's not just money. It's time off, it's flexibility, it's career development, it's personal
Mhm.
development. It's all the above.
I love it. I love it. And, I think that just makes for a healthier workplace when
Right.
it's just not all about, this is your job, go do your job, I pay you. That's it.
Yep.
Go home at the end of the
Absolutely.
day. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gone are the
Yeah.
days. Be thankful you have a job and,
Right.
they're gonna be
Right.
there for 45 years. It's the dream, but it doesn't
Yeah.
happen
No,
typically anymore.
that doesn't work. That doesn't work anymore. Well,
Right.
Jaclyn, this has been marvelous.
Yeah.
I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I'm going to put up your website. Even though we know it's not a trust company.
Not a trust
Um,
company. Delegate trust is kind of the thought process behind it.
that's
And
right. That's
I mean,
right.
I've worked with lawyers my whole life. You think I would have like thought ahead? Somebody's gonna take this way too literally, but it's all right. I just gotta work
Yeah,
on
we
my
all do. But if anybody would like to get in touch with you, learn more about your services, or perhaps is interested in working with you for placement,
Yep,
just go to dell-trust.com and they can email you from there. Is that right? And see about
yep,
your services, et cetera. Okay.
yep,
Okay. Great.
absolutely.
Great.
I got a
Great.
contact link and everything, and find me on LinkedIn too. I like to be busy on LinkedIn.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, I love LinkedIn too. It's
Yeah,
great.
it's my
Yeah.
favorite.
Okay, great. Well, listen, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you coming on. I have learned a lot. I know everybody who's listening and will listen to the replays will learn a lot.
Yeah,
And thank you for your time today. And
thank you.
thank you, everyone, for listening. If you don't forget, get in touch with Jaclyn at dell-trust.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, just go to my website, boldwomenlawyers.com. You'll see plenty of information there too. All right,
Excellent.
Jaclyn, listen,
Thank
thank
you.
you and have a great day.
You too. Thanks so much.
Okay.